Hello, patrons. Patreons.
That was not pronounced correctly.
Patrons. Patrons of our Patreon.
Hello, patrons of our Patreon.
Patrons.
Hello, Patron. Patronus. Hello, Patronuses. Patroni. It's going to be a long intro.
We will come up with a very special name for you.
Hello, Midnighters.
Yeah, you could say that. I like that.
Yeah. Hello, Midnighters. Thanks.
It's like a secret society.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us. And,
Wait, start again. Start again.
No,
okay.
Just go.
I'm just going. Welcome to the very first episode of Midnight Bites, our Patreon exclusive bonus cast. This is a little bit of an extension of our regular episode this month, which was our favorite holiday movies, if you will. And we're going to talk about our favorite holiday TV specials. One each, going to be quick, shorter list than our regular episode, but a good bonus. We figured there's just as many TV specials as there are movies out there, and I know I have quite a few TV specials that I love and like to revisit. So we'll go around and see what everyone dug up for this conversation. By the way, if you don't know already, I am Midnight Dave, and I am joined by
Katron,
Jenny from the grave,
and Jet Mike.
It's a mess already. All right.
Midnight Bites.
Midnight Bites.
You paid extra for us to be laid back.
Exactly. It's a little bit more cash. But anyway, Katron, what is your TV special you'd like to talk about for the holidays?
So my TV special is actually one that's pretty near and dear to my little black heart. I went a little silly with some of my picks for the movies, but this one does kind of harken back to my first pick. There is kind of a cat who's an asshole in it. And we're going to go right with A Garfield Christmas from 1987.
Ooh.
Nice.
I am a big Garfield fan. I'm not like a hyper fan that could tell you all the details of everything, but I've been reading those comics in the paper since I was a kid. It was something that I remember doing ever since I was little, reading the comics, having my parents, hand me the comic section, read the Garfields, love the Garfield. This was also 80s times, so this was prime Garfield stuff. I think it was late 70s maybe that it started to take off with all the merchandise. And there was also a series of these TV specials that started before the initial cartoon. And Garfield Christmas is just one of 12. Apparently there's 12 half-hour specials to Garfield that I didn't really know. I'll have to go through this list now and obsessively watch every single one. You're probably familiar with the Halloween one, at least, and this one, and maybe Thanksgiving, but there was also several others in between. We have the voice of Lorenzo Music as Garfield. Amazing voice acting done there. Hard to imagine anybody else, except when Bill Murray did take up the mantle in that movie that was live action CG oddness. It did sound very similar for some reason to
Nice.
Lorenzo Music. And I'm pretty sure Bill Murray only took that role because he thought that the director, whose name I can't remember, was a different famous director and kind of duped himself into the film. And it was too late. He already said yes. But aside from that, yes. Go ahead.
Oh, wasn't there there was a push on Twitter to get Matt Berry to do the voice in the next movie or incarnation of Garfield?
God, that would be so perfect.
Unfortunately, we have a different man. Do you guys know who's the next voice of Garfield?
No.
Bob Saget.
No. No. It's Chris Pratt. Is that his name?
Oh, no, it is not Chris Pratt.
Hangs out with the dinosaurs. He's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Unfortunately, no. The internet is real mad about it, so we'll see what happens. Maybe he can pull it off.
His voice isn't deep enough.
Should have been Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah, Gilbert Gottfried would have been
I
cool.
do love Chris Pratt, though, so I'm on board.
I'm sure
team-
Chris Pratt is really excited to do it.
Yeah.
So-
of course he is. He's a big dork.
In the spirit of positivity, as we are here, it's Christmas time. We'll be generous. Let's just hope that he'll be excited enough to do something fun with the role.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can see him doing hilarity, just pure hilarity.
Mm,
Um,
I'm
yeah,
excited
I'm
about
optimistic.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Fuck the internet.
That's right. So this short, it's a half-hour special, and it was written by Jim Davis himself. It predates the Garfield and Friends cartoon, so that didn't start until 1988. So this and the few other specials that happened, they weren't even showing that like Saturday cartoon yet. This was just specials that they were making. And in it, Garfield does learn some very special Christmas lessons down on the Arbuckle family farm. So, like I said, I'm not too deep into Garfield lore. I know that Garfield has a lot of fans that are super deep. I'm not sure how much of John's family showed up in the comics before this, but if I was just watching along as a child, I've suddenly learned that John is from Family Times down at the farm, which is an interesting backstory into John Arbuckle. Makes a little bit of sense, though, as to why maybe he's not always so has an idea of what's going on in his busy city life, and I think even his family calls him a city slicker when he shows up down at the Arbuckle farm. So this opens right away with a most decked out home that's got Christmas lights all over it. I think it says like Noel all giant and Santas and lights and things. And Garfield is in his bed and his normal like box with the blanket on it. The blanket has little Christmas trees on it. It's super cute. In the background is a fireplace with a roaring fire and a big red plastic blow mold candle plugged into the wall. And my eye just zeroed in on that because I was like, ooh, there's a blow mold in this.
Yeah.
That blow mold is plugged into a plug that's got about 50 other plugs in it, which
Oh, wow.
is hilarious and accurate, especially for a 1987 Christmas. I'm sure that's what everybody's house looked like, with everything crammed into the most flammable looking socket possible. So Garfield has John run in and wake him up, and it's Christmas. He's so excited. And John's like, all right, time to open up your presents, but first here's your morning lasagna. And then he puts several pans of lasagna leading Garfield out into another room. John is dressed like an elf, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that yet.
And elves come back,
So-
always.
Garfield's Christmas present is this horrifying looking animatronic Santa Claus chair. And he sits in it, and you put the like Santa hat on your head, and it can read your mind and then just give you whatever you want for Christmas. John puts it on, and a little like elf hat pops on his head. Garfield's like, cool, this is awesome. And he puts it on, and then the music kicks in as the special starts, and Garfield's just like making wish after wish, more wishes of Christmas presents, all filling up in the room, more and more stuff. And I think even the music to it is something like, gimme, 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 gimme. It's like just filling the room with presents. And if any of you do follow Dinosaur Dracula, he's a blogger that does a lot of nostalgia kind of things. I'm pretty sure he did chronicle every single thing that Garfield wished for in that scene. So if you want to know, he did the work for you. Go check that out.
I will check that out after this, actually.
Very good. So just a great opening, but it turns out it was all a dream. Garfield wakes up and John is just trying to get him to get into the car so they can pack it up to head down to the farm. It's just a sweet 23-minute long, fun, family-filled snuggle fest on top of Garfield with that dry wit, with that he's sort of just an asshole kind of thing going. That nice dichotomy, because let's be honest, there's always somebody like that in the family if it's not you. So it's fun. There's a car ride up and some songs because a lot of the stuff was musicals. The Halloween's got musicalness in it. This does too. The song as they're driving up to the Arbuckle farm is John kind of reiterating all of his Christmas memories, and then Garfield coming through with some like assholic comment about it. So John's like, "Oh, I remember decorating the tree," to which Garfield responds, "Gardening." And I remember writing Christmas cards, and Garfield responds, "Office work." It's just a fun like little back and forth for a little bit as they're driving down the road. Working for a Christmas and musical special, because a lot of times in musical they just kind of throw music in and nothing's happening. This is kind of setting the tone as you're going and driving up to the farm. We learn that John is going to see his mom, his pa, his brother named Doc Boy for some reason, and his grandmother, that all still live on the family farm. It's got pretty much everything you want in a Christmas special. There's Christmas movies. They sit down to eat dinner. There's a snowball fight. There's an emphasis on gifts because that's all Garfield obviously gives a shit about. He wants presents. And if his dream earlier didn't indicate that, yes, he's still into getting presents. John shows up with his cat and his dog. They all start settling in. Have any of you ever had a pet that you brought to somebody else's house for Christmas? I've only ever had cats.
No.
Later dogs, but
No.
cats. And I never brought my cat over to somebody's house. So I feel like it would be really nice to kind of do that. I think kid me watching this thought, wouldn't that be fun if I brought my cats here? Yeah, my cats would probably just piss everywhere and like hide in the corner. But the sentiment of being able to bring your cat, it would be easy to bring your dog everywhere. Dogs don't care.
Yeah.
But to bring your cat out for Christmas, that
To
would
bring your
kind of be nice.
Bring your goldfish.
Yeah, right.
You could bring your goldfish, I suppose, as long as it didn't freeze in the little bowl, you know.
Like in Animal Crossing, you can get one of those little carrying cases, the little fishbowl carrying
They're
case.
Oh, yeah.
cute. I don't know if you remember this, but Grandma in this movie is the fucking shit.
I do remember.
She's on screen. She's
I
wearing
do.
this pink sweatshirt with a star on it,
I love
pink
her.
Converse, and some jeans. And I'm like, damn, I'd wear that, Grandma. You're awesome.
Do
And
they not show her head?
it does show her head.
It
She's got
does
a
show
head.
her head.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
There's a couple scenes that kind of do have her from behind. Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, it's been so long.
I know the nanny in Muppet Babies
That's who I
had
think
Converse.
I'm getting her confused
Oh,
with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nope, not the nanny.
Yep.
But she says to John she does 100 push-ups every morning and then kind of like punches John in the stomach to be like, "Oh, you're getting soft, city boy." And he's like, "Look, Grandma, stop."
I love it so much.
And she picks up Garfield and she's looking at him and she's like, "I remember when we only had wood-burning cats. Ha ha." And Garfield's like, "What is happening?" And I paused it to write that quote down and I was like, wood-burning stoves, I guess, is the joke. I remember when we only had wood-burning stoves, but she's saying it to the cat. That's hilarious and weird, and it's great. So that kind of sets the tone. It's just the family getting together and John kind of being with the family who seems to be together all the time, and he's a little bit of an outsider. And Grandma herself kind of a little bit apart from the rest of the family sometimes. So Garfield hops in her lap a few times and they have like little moments together, which is super sweet. Super moving and emotional. And I think even like Garfield tries to like talk to the mom. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The mom is trying to talk to the grandma, and the grandma tells somebody to put a sock in it. And I'm like, yeah, Grandma. And Garfield's like, I'm gonna like her. Good stuff.
Do they get along swimmingly at the end?
They do. He kind of like figures out right away, like, all right, I'm gonna hang out with Grandma.
As he should.
There's a little bit of a scene that has to do with the gravy that's sitting on the stove, where Grandma walks by and puts her finger in and is like, "Oh, I'm about to put chili powder in," and then Mom walks in and she's like,
God, you just gave me a nostalgic moment.
"That it's something about that scene that while I was
Wow.
watching it, it must be the thickness of that gravy, the way it looks. It's just like a small, shallow pan with brown in it."
Animated food is so insanely good looking and nostalgic. It's very weird.
I don't eat gravy. I do. And I want to eat that gravy. They're tasting it. She throws in a little bit of chili powder, and Mom's not looking, and it looks delicious. It is just a
Patron.
plate of brown.
I appreciate that nostalgia punch to the face that you just gave
good.
me.
And they have a meal right after, so you do get to see this table full of cartoon food that kind of looks like real food, kind of doesn't, but you want to taste all of it because it just looks like plastic and weird and fun.
And Grandma made it. I mean,
Grandma's making it. She's secretly feeding Garfield and Odie under the table, which makes the audience be like, fucking Grandma is the best. Look at her go.
she really
Absolutely.
is. Yep.
And I think someone's like, wow, Grandma, you're really packing it away today. And she's like, that's because I'm eating for two. And there's like a pause, and they're like, good line. They trim the tree, so there's a little bit of that going on. That's all cute and sweet. Odie is secretly grabbing pieces of stuff and stowing them away somewhere that will come out later on as to something. And it's just fun, sweet Christmas. You've got Garfield complaining through it all. He does say whoever invented Christmas trees should get drug out into the street and shot.
Whoa.
I remember watching that as a kid, felt nothing of it. Watching it as an adult, I'm like, God damn, look at that. Okay.
That's more hate than Mondays.
A little more hate than Mondays. But then once it's plugged in, he does do the whole like, look over his shoulder, look at the audience and say, nice touch. Which I loved that. I loved breaking the fourth wall, which he would do sometimes. There's a sad moment where this is happening, that you do see Grandma in the background, and she's kind of in her chair, in her little rocking chair, and she's just looking out at the snow. And Garfield pops in her lap, and she's like, "Oh, Garfield, how did you know I needed a kitty in my lap right now?" And I'm like,
Aww.
that's me.
It is so good.
This morning, I'm like, am I going to cry at Garfield right now?
Aw.
Because if you are a cat person, sometimes they do, or any pet really, they just know that they need you or you need them.
Yeah.
And they'll come over to you and kind of snuggle, and you're just like, oh.
Yep. No, cats are super intuitive.
She kind of
Definitely.
tells him a story about the grandpa's no longer there, and well, sometimes she gets a little lonely, and I'm like, oh God, oh
Aw.
Garfield. It's just super
Aw.
sweet, and you have that connection with pets too, and you don't. This is the Garfield Christmas special. It's usually just him like pushing John's face into coffee and like telling him he's a piece of shit. So that is, you've got this like sweetness to the story is nice, and that he's connecting with the character who's also pretty gruff. So it's sort of like, all right, they get along well. And you can find those people in your family. Maybe you don't get along swimmingly with everybody, but there might be somebody there who can be your go-to. And they read a book together. So this is the family tradition. Now, they're all adults. Doc Boy is an adult. He's a balding adult. John is an adult. And they all beg the dad to read a book that's called Binky Saves Christmas. Binky the Clown, who's a reoccurring character in Garfield. Basically the bozo of their world. So they read the story. It's that whole family thing. Presents are given, and that's the part that I won't give away too much. It's just that's the kind of ending that ties it all together, where perhaps we learn that it's not always about the gifts or what those gifts are, but perhaps the family that comes together and love. Then there's some hoedown music, and that's enough to take you to the end. I love this Christmas special, watching it again. I don't think I'd seen it for a little bit. It hit extra hard this morning while I was, about to tear up over Grandma petting the cat in her lap.
Yeah, man.
I think my cat was probably next to me on the couch, so I was probably like, I love you too.
He's like, yeah, what? How do you find this special?
It is available on YouTube for free on the official channel for Garfield, so you can watch it
nice.
and not feel bad. Nice quality up there. Very good.
Yay. Awesome.
Solid. Right on. I love it when
I know
they do that.
they have Garfield special DVD collections, and I wonder if it's
Yes.
on any of those.
It is. Some of them are out of print, so they might be difficult to find. I think you can buy just Garfield Christmas alone pretty cheap, but the one that's got like Christmas and Halloween and Thanksgiving, I think that one's out of print and is a little bit tough to find.
Mm.
At least not normally. You probably have to get it from a reseller.
So there's Happy Holidays Garfield. That's not the same thing, right?
Is that like a multi pack or something? I don't know. There's 12 specials, and I don't know what all of them are. So that
Let's
might
see.
be.
There's also a Garfield ugly Christmas sweater, which I now probably need to own.
Oh, sure.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
So one question.
yes.
Now, I wasn't nothing against Garfield. I just wasn't like the biggest Garfield fan.
Sure.
And so is it kind of like a Peanuts, Charlie Brown Christmas thing where it was based off of old comics that they interpreted into the special, like old Christmas one strips or what have you?
I don't know.
I mean,
have
Garfield
no
was a
idea.
comic strip.
It says it's written by Jim Davis, so it's possible that it was. But like I said, I love Garfield, but I'm not versed enough to be able to answer that.
Gotcha.
So it's very possible. Why rewrite the wheel if you've already got it?
Yeah. I don't know. Just curious because I know, with Charlie Brown, like there's always reoccurring motifs in the comics, and they brought them all back for the TV specials. So hey, why not?
Yeah, that's a good question.
But definitely somebody who has grown up with cats, love cats, big cat fan. Garfield is also part of the things I love because not only was it part of my childhood, but it is also like just ridiculous, rampant consumerism, fun nostalgia stuff. So like you can get Garfield everything and anything.
Yep.
Because they just put Garfield as fucking everything.
I just remember, like, my grandfather would get the newspaper, and I would grab the funnies section, and Garfield would be the first one I would read out of all of them.
Kids still love it. Kids love a snarky character.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question to you is this. This is a very important question. Do you think they can understand Garfield?
I don't see why not. I mean, he loves eating. He loves being lazy. So they got those in spade.
Do they hear him talk? When Garfield has his lines, do they hear him talk?
Have you ever read Garfield Without Garfield?
Absolutely. It is some fine art of our time.
It
No,
is.
I
And it
haven't
makes
read that.
John very... Well, for those that don't know,
Oh,
there was a
I've
Tumblr.
I've heard of this. Okay.
yeah, and it probably might have like predated the Tumblr, but they would take Garfield comics and then they would like Photoshop out Garfield. So it was just John having existential thoughts. Like without Garfield, he's just this dude by himself having these weird random thoughts. And aren't we all really?
Sure.
And it would be interesting to see one of these specials sans Garfield, and then they're just kind of, or at least his Diz dialogue, and how wacky it would be. But I don't know. I like to think that they are. I mean, John talks to his cat enough,
I just don't think that when John is talking to Garfield, Garfield's not. John doesn't hear Garfield talk back. This is when you read the strips. John's got the regular word bubble. Garfield has a thought bubble.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I think maybe Garfield minus Garfield made me think of it the most because it's just John walking in, talking, and walking out. And isn't that what I do to my cats all the time? I'll walk in and say something stupid to my fucking cat. Goddamn, I'm glad they can't speak English. 'Cause what would they say back?
Yep.
I don't think they understand him. And I think even at some point in this cartoon, Grandma says, look at me talking to a cat, haha. And he kind of looks up at her.
Yeah.
So I don't think they hear Garfield. His mouth doesn't move.
No.
It's, it moves with his little like cat lips, but he doesn't like talk. So
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Has anyone seen the new Garfield movie that came out? God, what was it, like 3 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago?
Was that the Bill Murray one?
they think there's 2 of those.
Oh, is there? Yeah,
I
I'm
think
behind.
So in those movies, does he have that internal dialogue, or does he actually talk?
It's still the same where I think his mouth doesn't move. I saw the first one. I don't really remember anything. It's not the same kind of flavor, of course.
Gotcha.
Because you got to make everything more wacky.
Mm.
He can't just be some sarcastic cat. Who would watch that? That only worked for however long Garfield has been popular. We got to change this up.
Right.
These are good questions.
But that was my Christmas special. It was, they would play it like back to back with the Charlie
Yeah,
Brown.
no, I remember it,
So
and
you've
I
probably
didn't.
seen it many times if you watched any of those.
Oh, I definitely did, and I thank you for bringing that back into my field. Like, I have the Amazon open right now, trying to buy the DVD because I'm like, I need it. Because there's the holiday celebration, but it is $55
Yeah,
for
it's
a
on print.
DVD.
Well, there's always YouTube.
That's horrifying.
Official YouTube. So, hey, can't go wrong there.
Yeah, we'll probably go down that route. I remember
Yeah.
seeing this at Strawberries in our massive holidays collection a million times, and I should have freaking bought it. What
I
was
know, huh?
wrong with me?
You would know that 10 years later, they would not have made any more, and that was it.
I know.
But thank you, Katron.
Mhm,
Appreciate it. Jenny from the grave. What's your TV special of choice?
Ooh.
I'm a scared.
It's Ghost Stories
mhm.
by the British, aka Ghost. Okay, so there's so much. So as we were talking about in our main episode, which K-Tron was talking about, the British love their Christmas ghost stories. We don't really know why. A Christmas Carol is definitely stemmed from that kind of cultural belief, cultural tradition. I don't know. It didn't get really carried over to the US, so it's hard for us to grasp, but it is still pretty rad nonetheless. They love telling ghost stories around Christmas time, and a bunch of made for TV, not even made for TV, but just TV specials have come out, and I'm going to give you kind of like an overall of a few different productions that they've come out with, and then kind of talk about my favorite ones, because there's just so much, and I highly recommend watching them. They're kind of hard to find. I think if you have the BBC, you might be able to watch them. There are a few DVD sets out. So the first collection that I'm talking about were the BBC shorts from 1971 to 78. Those are like the classic ones. Those are all good. Like, none of them are bad. They're all fantastic. And that one you can probably get on Amazon.
They also sell them on their website. I mean, granted, it's in British pounds, and you have to pay the shipping for those. But
it's probably around like $40 to $50, I think, for the DVD, but it's worth it. You're getting like 8 stories.
Yeah, like essentially 8 short films. So it's pretty.
Yeah,
it's worth it if you want to dive into this type of venture.
And then fast forward a little bit. So actually, rewind a little bit. All the shorts were shot on 16 millimeter from the 1971 to 78 versions. They featured well-known British actors of the time period, like Clive Swift, Peter Vaughan, Robert Hardy, Edward Petherbridge, and Denham Elliott, which were a lot of big names back then. And they were all based on adaptations of stories from the 4 books by M.R. James, which he published between 1904 and 1925. So my guess was that these ghost stories were kind of told around fires and, sort of like narrated to each other back and forth until they were actually turned into a series in the 70s. I don't really know. I delved into it a little bit, and this is what I found. I would really love if there was more information online about these ghost stories and like where they came from, and well, I know where they came from, but like how they traveled, and if they traveled anywhere else, it would be really cool. But it's kind of hard to find like the origins of them. But so we have, I think, 7 or 8 stories from the 70s. One of my favorite ones was A Warning to the Curious. And that one regarded these kind of lost ancient artifacts, the crown of the Anglicans, I think. It's about this anthropologist who travels to this remote beach area looking for this artifact that he's been trying to find for a long time and that nobody can find. It's kind of like a Indiana Jones-ish story where nobody can find it. And he ends up digging it up and is haunted by this figure. Wherever he goes, whoever he meets, he always sees this figure and he tries to bring it back, and I'll end it there. I won't tell you anymore, but it's pretty creepy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit more to that one, right? Because it was like 3 crowns that were supposed to protect Britain from invaders. And 2 had been discovered, or like 1 washed away and 1 was discovered, but they never found the 3rd one. So that's what the archaeologist is looking for. But the town knows where it is that he visits, and so there's this huge line of secrecy. Like, the town shuns outsiders completely. They don't help them, they don't serve him at restaurants, and he hardly gets bored at a hotel. Even they tell him that's completely full, but all the rooms are empty. You know, it's very Lovecraftian in that way. You know, you go to like the seaside village and like no one and so, you know, as Jenny said, that he finds the crown and then just gets the sense of being followed everywhere. But is it a person? Is it a spirit? Watch and find out.
Those stories, that a lot of them were just written during that time period as sort of something to do in your parlor to entertain your guests. And they all have those kind of like, it's a build and you build and then there's a twist. It's a kind of storytelling that works well to be spoken out loud, but can also be translated for these kinds of things. So I think people would have just books of these short stories, even if it was an M.R. James, like they'd have many others just to be like, all right, it's that time of Christmas, everyone.
Yeah.
Time to scare the bejesus out of ourselves.
Which some of them are damn creepy. In 2000, actually on point with what Katron was saying, Sir Christopher Lee, narrated 4 of the stories, including the Stalls of Barchester and a few more, where they're just straight narrations for TV. And those are some of my favorites, to be honest. Like they show some images, but it is mostly just cuts to Christopher Lee in this den with all of his students. He's supposedly like a professor at this like prestigious boys' school.
Oh, he's M.R. James.
He's M.R. James.
Yeah, he's portraying M.R. James when he was like a professor at Oxford University.
I didn't realize that. But they're all like sitting around sipping brandy, like him and all these like 19-year-olds or something, and he's telling the ghost stories. It's great. And then in 2005 they did like a revival, which contains one of my other favorites from the series, which is called Whistle and I'll Come to You, which like scarred me for life, I feel like.
I think I've heard that one.
God, you have?
I think so.
Yeah, that's the one with John Hurt, right?
It stars John Hurt and his wife. I don't remember the actress's name, but it's about her, like they're older, they're elderly, and she has like dementia, or not even dementia. She's got like severe Alzheimer's, and he like takes care of her like every day, you know, full commitment, and then ends up having to put her in a home because she's just kind of a vegetable almost at this point. And he goes off to kind of live what he has left of his life and kind of like, you know, do stuff. And it's very sad and depressing, but he's like, he goes to the ocean side where they used to go when they were a couple, and he rents out a room, and he's, you know, kind of like, he has this guilt that he's left her in this kind of like home, even though he's, you know, trying to do it for himself. So he's got that kind of like that internal battle going on, and freaky things start happening in his hotel room, and he keeps like walking on the water and having these things try to get into his room at night. They like bang on his door, and he's all huddled up in bed, all scared and freaked out. And yeah, I don't want to give away anything from the story, but it's like keeps like reflecting upon him and on his wife and how like their relationship, and it's pretty haunting. It kind of like freaked me out. I had trouble sleeping that night, so it worked.
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah.
They really, like, you wouldn't think, you know, a ghost story for Christmas, at least like
Yeah.
as an American, you're just like, oh, you know, it might be like kind of whimsical or what. No, this is
Yeah.
dread.
At first, when we started watching them, I was like, "What does this have to do with Christmas?" Which I still don't really know the answer to, but I do know that it's just British, and that's all you can really say. And I thoroughly enjoyed the ones that we've watched so far. I don't think we've watched all of them, so we'll have to finish those up this Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think after the John Hurt one, we took a time out because it was just so
Stigma was
dreadful.
really good too. Yeah, you have to be in the right like headspace.
Or not, and have it even be more terrifying.
Yeah, yeah, they're spooky, man.
I think a lot of it might have to do with just it's the end of the year. It's, that's the time when ghosts would come traditionally. If you're thinking like druid type times.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
It's perhaps we're a little bit closer to the spirit world, not only during Halloween, but also towards the year's end. There's probably some things with grudges maybe that want to come back.
Ooh. Another notable one was Stigma. That was in the 70s collection, and it was about a young couple full of life and love and energy and happiness, and they move to the countryside, and they start discovering Stonehenge pieces in their backyard.
Oh my goodness.
And they dig them up. Ooh, bad idea. It's like Pet Cemetery up in the house.
Yeah, and then like whatever evil spirits that particular thing was supposed to protect them with just come
Are
on
unleashed.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not gonna say anything more, but ooh, it's so creepy.
Yeah, man. Check them out. I'll vouch. They're
Mm.
they're pretty great.
Yeah, if you're sick of like Jingle All the Way and
For the record, no one's sick of Jingle All the Way.
well, if you want a darker tone, definitely check these out. They're so well done, well acted, just they're great. So that's
Well, thanks,
my recommendation.
Jenny.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Jet Mike.
Yeah.
How you doing over there? You look like you're a little sleepy.
I'm ready.
All
right.
Good to hear. What have you got for us for your TV special?
My pick is Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
From 1977.
I'm glad the Jim Henson thing carried over to the bonus cast. 'Cause...
Yes. Deservedly so.
Absolutely.
All right, for a little synopsis. We've got young Emmett and his mom live on the river, doing odd jobs like carpentry and laundry to get by after the death of Pa Otter. So, right off the bat, it's got some sadness to it.
Mm-hmm.
They live in a town comprised of the haves and the have-nots, and when Christmas rolls around, they are dirt poor, yet want to get each other something special. Emmett pines for a guitar, while Ma loves a piano, and they individually know that the only way to afford a gift is to win the upcoming talent show.
Ooh.
So they pull a gift to the Magi scenario here, and Emmett puts a hole in his mom's wash tub to make a base for the jug band he was joining with his friends, while Ma sells the tools her husband left behind to buy fabric for a nice dress to perform it. They both are prepared for the show, and neither one of them knows that the other was there. And they both desire nothing but victory, so they can surprise the other with a Christmas gift. The wrench in this whole show is the surprise appearance by the Nightmare Band.
Nightmare Band.
Yes. And they are a bunch of hooligans from the next town over, which consist of, what do we have? We have a bear, we have a snake, we have some amphibians, we have a weasel, and Chuck is the bear. He's the band leader, and the gang leader, I guess, as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they spend the episode coming through town and wreaking havoc and messing up the music store and harassing Emmett and his friends and whatnot. And at the beginning, they even steal Kermit's scarf. Because Kermit the Frog bookends, he introduces and kind of says goodbye at the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of is a nice little link to to it being a Jim Henson production. and probably was a good marketing way too to get little kids to maybe take a chance on it. If they go, oh, this is Kermit, okay, and they just watch it, So I won't spoil how everything works out with the talent show and how everything happens. Let me see. But I will say, like, it's a great special, one of my absolute favorites, and it's also a bit heartbreaking. It's a little, not dark, maybe that's the wrong word, but it's a somber special a lot of the times because they're really struggling to get through life. They lost the dad or the husband, and they're just trying to make it their way.
Man, I've
yeah.
never seen this movie.
Oh, it's so
I don't
good,
know
so
how.
Yeah.
I don't know how I've never seen this movie, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah. It is ultimately heartwarming though. And the characters are extremely cute little Muppets.
So cute.
And yep, Kermit was in it. The soundtrack is a nice mix of fun songs and melancholy songs, and it matches the story.
Yep.
And for like a personal thing, I discovered it when I was really small, when HBO would air it in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for some reason, I'd most often see it early on the weekend mornings, probably because that's when I could watch the TV because I was up before everybody else. And they ran it a lot because it's HBO, and, that and Beastmaster.
Classic. What a double feature.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet, like when I grew a little bit older, it seemed to disappear. It would never really come back, and it wasn't really, might have been part of it too, as I was getting older and I wasn't up at those times. I wasn't watching TV. I would be out with my friends in high school or whatever. But whatever reason, it went away. There was a big rights thing too. I know a lot of the earlier DVDs had to take Kermit out because one person owned the Muppets and one person owned this, and it was all that. I'm happy to say that's not the case anymore. It's not on Disney Plus. I think it's on Prime or Hulu, but Kermit is back in it.
So and Apple.
Good.
And Apple too. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Is it on Hulu?
It's on either Hulu or Prime. I can't remember which one.
It's definitely on Prime. Prime and Apple. I don't know about Hulu, but if it is, I know what I'm watching tonight.
All right. It's probably not. I know it was only on one of the ones that I have, so it's probably just the Prime. But either way. So as I grew to a young adult, like I said, the special seemed to fade out of existence. But one year, I returned home just after sunrise from my overnight job to find my mom, who was sick with the flu, in my bed because, she didn't want my dad to get it or whatever. So she's like, well, Mike's working overnight. I'll sleep in his bed. So I had no choice but to settle in the living room. So I turned on the TV, and after years and years and years, there it was.
Oh.
Nice early morning showing, just like it used to be. Good old Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. So it was a nice way to reminisce and a nice way to really remind myself in a crazy holiday season when I was working overnight and exhausted what's, really important in life.
Right on.
I love that, Jet Mike. Nice.
This movie is so sweet. I did remember watching it as a kid, but I didn't latch onto it as hard as I did other things, but I rediscovered it maybe a handful of years ago because it was on like Black Friday, $1 DVD or $3 or something at Target, and I was like, oh, I'll get that. And it was the new anniversary edition or something. So I picked one up for me and one up for my dad. And I watched it again, and it's very sweet. It's just not as hardcore as a lot of stuff that's out there, even as some of the Muppets were later. I think this was the first thing that he did for HBO that they asked him to make a movie. I think this came before Dark Crystal.
Oh.
And they, with both those movies, they kind of figured, well, I think we need to put people in these movies instead of having just Muppets, because this is all Muppets. There's no human characters in it. And they thought maybe that would help connect the audiences a little bit better. So you get to see as they're sort of just starting to figure out how to do these full... How long is it, Mike? Do you know the runtime? Is it like full
70,
movie?
75 minutes, something like that?
So a full 70-minute thing of just Muppets, just doing Muppet things. So you can watch how they're figuring out some of the technology. There's a scene where Emmett Otter's on a boat going down a river and he's singing, and I'm trying to figure out how does a person have their arms stuck underneath going through all those water there. Then I realized, so they probably use like a little animatronic puppet for the long shots, and then have
Because he's also rowing.
he's moving.
Yeah.
He's so I think it's animatronic for that, and then maybe for the close-ups you've got the better mouth movements and things like that. It's just interesting to see for the technology and to see this like burgeoning company just figuring out what's going to make them big. And it does have a lot of heart. The song about the barbecue sauce or whatever, like it'll get stuck in your head for days. And then Mom's song is just so like sorrowful but beautiful. It's just cool to see the effects and the technology in it too. And then it's also these like cute woodland creatures who are friends doing this musical thing together. And the talent show that they're doing this to make the money for, then you get a little bit of wacky Muppet stuff going on because you got everybody trying to win this money from all over town. And that's kind of fun too.
Mm.
And the River Bottom Nightmare Band, yeah, they're the bad guys of the whole thing, but they also kind of serve to bring in like a little relief, because it is kind of a really sad story. And like you can tell how much they love each other and whatever, but that's still even serious. But then here comes this gang who become like the comic relief, which is amazing that the bad guys are the comic relief. And their song at the talent show like kicks ass.
It's badass. They are like this metal band or heavy metal band probably for the time that come in. And you've got like the fish on, I think he's a fish or a frog. You got the fish or the frog on stage like jumping in and out of the tank while they're like rocking out, like Kiss-esque to their song. This huge production going on in this small town talent show.
Again, I would like to ask the universe how I would have never seen this movie.
I think it's just maybe because it was rights things, or maybe because it's kind of soft-spoken, I want to say, compared to many of the other things that were to come. Like Dark Crystal is just all this big fantasy, huge thing. This is really like this little contained thing, and probably because the sets were smaller, but it just, it's not as big as everything else. But once you find it, it's sort of like, oh, wow, we take for granted that this was here. And it was kind of a stepping stone for everything else.
I read too that this was how Jim Henson was able to convince the studio that he was able to work everything to make the Muppet movie. So he was able to perform the Muppets the way he wanted to, even though they were on a larger scale and these guys are really little. But he was able to, put in the technology of puppetry that would make the movie work. So they would fund it for him.
I could see that. You got the otter rowing down the stream, and then you got Kermit bicycling himself.
Yep.
It's the, same smoke and mirrors.
And they didn't have that CG stuff at the time yet. It was still very, very new if they did have it. So they were trying to figure out how to make special effects at this time. Everything was so new. And what he was doing was just so genius and so not necessarily ahead of its time, but the right time for him to be able to be there and to flourish with this art, because that's what it is. It's beautiful art.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
The final TV special. It's all me, man. For those that don't know, we're recording this right after our regular episodes, so we're all a little tired. And the wave just hit me.
You can do it.
I can do it.
We got this. We're tired, but we're filled with knowledge.
And nostalgia.
Yeah.
And Christmas.
And Christmas. And much like all of your choices, there's a little bit of somberness in my choice, which is the Hey Arnold Christmas special.
Yay.
Called Arnold's Christmas from 1996. It debuted on their first season towards the end there. And before I forget, you can watch it on Hulu. They got on their stuff and they added all the Nicktoons on there, so it's really cool. Get to catch up on all of that. But for those that don't know, Hey Arnold, Arnold Shortman, as it was discovered in the Jungle movie, is his last name. He lives in a boarding house and full of an odd assortment of characters. You know, you have the very short Arnie, the construction guy, Mr. Hune, which this episode will focus on, as well as a bunch of other people. His grandparents, Grandpa and Pookie, who Jenny aspires to be when she gets that old. Because Pookie, much like the grandma in the Garfield Christmas special, is also an eccentric grandmother with a very warm, soft core. You can't help but love Pookie. But anyway, so they live in a boarding house and they get together to have to have a secret Santa. So they all draw names from a hat, and Arnold draws Mr. Hune, and he doesn't know anything about him. He is this man. At the beginning of the episode and throughout the first season, you figure out that, you know, okay, he is of some sort of Asian descent, but they don't really go into any specifics until this episode. And so he meets with Mr. Hune, and he's like, what would you like for Christmas? And he's like, I don't really want anything. And then Arnold tries to, you know, poke and prod at him, you know, not letting him know that he's his secret Santa, but wanting to at least figure out what this guy likes, what this guy's all about. And so he, if I remember correctly, he sees a picture on a mantle and he's like, oh, who's that? And he goes, that's my daughter. And Arnold's like, I didn't know you had a daughter. And so begins the story of Mr. Hune, where he tells the story of how he got to America, and it was during the Vietnam War. And the Viet Cong, they don't really go into like that kind of specifics, but you can tell it's the Viet Cong, the northern communist Vietnam taking over South Vietnam, and his village was in South Vietnam, getting overrun. It was very dangerous. So he is running to the American GIs, helicoptering people out of the country. And so he takes his baby, his daughter, his infant daughter, and he gives it to one of the American GIs in the helicopter. And the American GI shouts where he could find her, like what city. You know, it's the city that they live in is like ambiguous. It's like either like Chicago, Boston, New York hybrid, but whatever. So he says, he told me to come to the city. And then you see it's all, and at this point it's all flashback, right? So you see him give the GI the baby to the GI, and so you see the copter fly off, and then it fades back to present day. They're in his apartment, and he's like, I would like nothing more than to see my daughter again. And so Arnold makes it a mission, because Arnold is always a man on a mission, to find Mr. Hune's daughter. So he goes down to the bureaucracy that is missing persons, and cut to B plot, which is Helga Pataki, the secret crush of Arnold. Arnold doesn't have the crush. Helga is mega crushing on Arnold throughout the entire series. Arnold doesn't know about it. Helga's a huge bully to Arnold to hide her feelings, and she wants nothing more for Christmas than Nancy Spumoni snow boots. They are the hot ticket fashion item of the season. They're sold out everywhere. They are the Turbo Man of this universe. And so that's the B plot. Arnold goes to the bureaucracy, whatever the department you want to call it. The guy is overrun, and he still has to go shopping, because Arnold Schwarzenegger is not the only dad that waits till the last minute to go shopping for his family, apparently. And so he's like, okay, kid, if you get everything on my shopping list, I will find you this person. And so Arnold and his best friend Gerald go and find everything on the list except for, wait for it, Nancy Spumoni snow boots for the bureaucrat's daughter. And they go everywhere, and they're laughed at. They're laughed out of retail stores. They're laughed out of Strawberries. They're laughed out of, every place, because everyone's like, are you kidding me? This has been sold out for months. So he's like, what's, we got everything except this one thing. What's the big deal? He can't hold it against us. Well, he holds it against them. And so he can't find, the guy just refuses. He's like, no snow boots, no deal. So that's a bum. Cut to Helga. I forget what she was doing this whole time, but then she goes and, had run into Arnold. Arnold told her the whole plan. She says something snarky, what have you. She goes back to her parents. Oh, hey, welcome back. We got you a gift. And she's like, all right, whatever. And she tears it open. And inside is Nancy Spumoni snow boots. And the mom's like, I must have gotten the last pair in the city. And then she puts them on right away. She runs outside. They play the supposed theme song of the Nancy Spumoni snow boots or whatever it is. It's like really jazzy. She's dancing in the snow. And then record scratch. She realizes that Arnold needs these boots for a better cause, if we will, to find Mr. Hune's daughter. So she's torn. She's torn. And I'd feel like a dick if I didn't tell you the ending at this point. But long story short, Arnold's dragging his feet. It's the next day. It's Christmas Day. He's down. Everyone has their gift. And then Grandpa's like, Mr. Hune, there must be a gift for Mr. Hune. And then he goes, no, it's okay. Don't worry. I don't need anything. And then Arnold is about to tell him everything he did. And then the doorbell rings and Grandpa's like, who the hell is coming to our house on Christmas Day? And then just as Arnold is about to tell Mr. Hune, a girl walks into the room. And Mr. Hune looks up and it is his daughter, no longer a baby. And he obviously is ecstatic. And then, they power to the show. They actually start talking what I believe is Vietnamese to each other. And then Arnold just says to himself, Merry Christmas, Mr. Hune. And then it cuts to outside and Helga is standing in the snow, bootless, just saying Merry Christmas, Arnold. And then that's how it ends. Go see it for yourself, because I might have done
all of Arnold.
Watch all of Arnold
all
in
of
general,
it.
but that particular episode, season 1, I think it's like 20 something. It's on Hulu right now. It's the great. It's one of my all-time favorites.
Great.
It's great. I tear up, if not cry to myself quietly every time I watch it. Hey Arnold is like one of my all-time favorite shows because it has this like very empathetic, sincere core, which I think it's kind of, I think, the first in many that would inspire Parks and Rec or The Office, where it's like the first to react to, the Gen X snarkiness, like with like Seinfeld and Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's the complete antithesis of that. You have sincere characters with flaws that try to work through them and stuff like that. A bit grandiose. I don't think you could find a missing persons in a day. Although there is a little bit of credibility because it is the city that they brought her to, So maybe. But a great story nonetheless. And even though I just explained the whole plot to you, it's still a fantastic watch.
Yeah. The characters make it, really.
The characters make it, and there's a whole bunch of like little in-between stuff that just, make you laugh.
All the subplots.
Yeah, exactly. It all gels together really well. So that is my recommendation, and also one of my all-time favorite TV holiday specials, Arnold's Christmas from Hey Arnold 1996, on Hulu right now, and also available on Blu-ray and DVD.
I think I've seen it. I kind of remember that. I didn't watch a lot of Hey Arnold. I was there when the Nicktoons were starting, so that was like sort of the second wave, and by then I wasn't as into what they were putting out. But some of my friends who are a little bit younger than me and probably more your age, of like they loved that show, and I did watch it a little bit, and I feel like I remember that particular episode because I think I remember him trying to look for the kid and Helga finally being nice and
Yeah.
some of that. And
Yeah.
it's just, hey, you see it at the right time in your life too. It just hits you. We're like,
Mm.
oh wow, this is a little bit deeper than things usually get for
For
media for me.
cartoons, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And they would play it every year because, of course, they would. But for me, like Mike would say, Emmett Otter's Jug Band will always be on at the right time. Same thing with me with Hey Arnold. It would always be on. And, just the sincere nature of it and the fact that it was a show that I was super invested in anyway, it just all coalesced in it being like, part of my being at that point, at this point in time. So, yeah, just a quick story. Jenny had never seen Hey Arnold. You probably heard of it.
No,
but
I'd seen it.
You had seen it? Well,
I'd
we
never.
did.
Yeah, I'd seen it. I hadn't watched it as religiously as you.
Well, I know you got me the entire series for Christmas or my birthday one year, and that's what we watched. We watch cartoons every Saturday when we make like a big breakfast. So as we're cooking, we would throw on a particular series, and Hey Arnold was one of them, along with Odd Real Monsters and what have you. So
same thing as K-Tron. I think I got sucked into the first round of Nicktoons, and then the second round I got kind of lost. It was lost on me for one reason or another, and A. Arnold was part of it. And watching it again, holy crap, what a good series! Like, it's now one of my favorites, honestly.
yeah, and so many iconic like characters. Like you have Pigeon Man, you have the turtle that they save from the aquarium,
Stoop Kid,
voiced by the kid from Salute Your Shorts.
Oh, really? That makes sense.
Pookie, who I'm sure is going to be me when I'm old.
Oh, yeah. See, you went off, but I was explaining how you aspired to be Pookie when we're that old. So.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
She's such a badass grandma.
One of two in this mini-sode.
Badass MRS Bites brought to you by Badass Grandmas.
Always and forever.
I mean, I have never seen Hey Arnold, but from your description, I want to watch that episode.
And the music is phenomenal.
See, I'm a huge jazz head, and rewatching it, Jenny pointed out how this was the genesis of my love of jazz, because it is so good. Jim Lang, I think, does the music for it.
I mean, how ballsy for a cartoon to be like, yeah, we're going to bring in jazz and for it to all meld and work. It's just great.
Yeah, it's awesome. I highly recommend it all the time. But yeah, that's about it for this episode of Midnite Bites. First episode.
Hey.
The inaugural episode.
And it was a very special Crimbus special.
Crimbo! Yeah.
I'm gonna go watch something and cry now.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely. It's also sentimental. But so are the holidays.
Or go watch some ghost stories and not be able to sleep.
Either get sentimental and cry or get terrified and cry. The choice is yours.
Yeah.
The choice is yours, our listener.
Yeah.
Choose wisely.
But listener, if you have any recommendations you would like to give us, leave them in the Patreon comments. Reach out to us. Send us a message on Patreon.
Absolutely.
Or all of our social meets as I like to call them. And thank y'all for listening, and thank all of you for joining me at 9:00 at night. Oh, what a session. Thank you all. Thank everybody. I love you all. Have a fantastic night. If you don't know us, just rewind and listen to us say our names. We live in a technology-filled land. You get it.
Sure.
So thanks for being a Patreon, and keep
Happy
supporting
holidays.
us. And happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye.